Professor Aris Thorne always felt a peculiar shift in the atmosphere whenever he came to Salem, Massachusetts. It wasn't just the sharp autumn winds or the melancholic fogs of New England. It was more like an ancient whisper hanging in the air, an echo from centuries past, a wound that had never truly closed. As a historian, Aris had always believed in facts, documents, and provable truths. The supernatural to him was merely folklore, mystic superstitions not to be taken seriously in academia. Yet his convictions were about to be severely shaken on this particular Halloween visit. It was 2025, and Salem, as it did every October, teemed with the fervor of Halloween. With the 300th anniversary of the Salem witch trials approaching, Aris aimed to debunk the myths surrounding these events, to scientifically prove that the victims were unjustly accused, having nothing to do with witchcraft. His project, titled The True Face of Salem, Myths and Realities, aimed to strip away the commercialized image of witchcraft that enveloped the town. However, as Aris walked the town's historic cobblestone streets, he began to realize that beneath the echoes of laughter and celebration, a darker shadow lurked. His accommodation was an old 17th century house in the heart of Salem's historic district, the Hawthorne House. The house belonged to one of the town's most prominent families, and rumors suggested a direct connection to the witch trials. Aris loved the historical texture of the house, the creaking wooden floors, the dust motes dancing in the pale sunlight filtering through the windows, a place that carried the spirit of the past. But the moment he stepped inside, a cold gust of wind struck his face, and his nostrils filled with a strange scent of dried herbs and burnt wood. An unfamiliar chill crept up his spine. Was it merely the cold, or a whisper from the house's depths? He immediately began his research. He spent hours in places like the Salem Witch Museum, the Witch House, Jonathan Corwin House, and the Peabody Essex Museum, examining old records, court transcripts, and personal letters. One name in particular caught his attention: Sarah Goode. She was one of the first victims of the Salem witch trials, a homeless, elderly, and ostracized woman. According to records, Sarah had cursed her accusers, proclaiming, "True justice will one day find you." Aris believed such curses were merely the last desperate words of a hopeless woman, but the longer he stayed in Salem, the stronger the echo of those words seemed to become. Lena Petrova, Aris's academic partner and a young, eager folklore researcher, believed in Salem's supernatural energy from day one. Lena enjoyed challenging Aris's materialistic approach. "Aris," she'd say with a mischievous twinkle in her eyes, "some truths lie far deeper than your old books. Some spirits continue to exist, even if you don't believe in them." Aris would simply shrug off these remarks, but Lena's tales of town legends, especially the stories of witch victims' spirits returning to the town on Halloween night, slowly began to burrow into his mind. Nights at the Hawthorne House were particularly unsettling. The wood would creak, indecipherable whispers would emanate from the walls, and old doors would open and close on their own. Aris would rationalize all this as normal occurrences for an old house: wind, changes in the heating system, gravity. But one night, as he sat at his desk reading his notes on Sarah Goode, he felt a cold breath on the back of his neck from the window behind him. There was no one outside, and the wind had died down, but the breath had frozen his nape. His heart pounded. Slowly he turned around. On the window pane, in the condensation, a name appeared: Sarah. Aris froze. This couldn't be a prank. The window had fogged from the inside, and there was no one else in the room but him. He quickly stood up, approached the window. He wiped the name away, but an icy sensation lingered on his fingertips. He couldn't sleep that night. Was this Sarah Goode's curse, or merely the effect of fatigue and the town's eerie atmosphere? The next day, he told Lena what had happened. Lena's face showed both surprise and an "I told you so" expression. "Aris, it's Halloween," she said. "Salem's veil is thinning. The past is bleeding into the present. Sarah Goode won't leave you alone." Lena suggested they research Sarah's final words further. They re-examined the transcripts of Sarah's last trial, where she was condemned to death. There they found an additional section, handwritten, that had not been officially recorded in the court documents. Sarah had sworn to the judges, jury members, and townspeople who condemned her, "You shall be washed in blood, your souls shall find no peace. Every Halloween I shall return to these lands and bring justice with my own hands." This wasn't just a curse. It was a vow of vengeance. Aris was still skeptical, but this finding deeply affected him. Lena claimed that this curse was stronger only on Halloween, in places considered most sacred in the town, like the old courthouse, the witch memorial, and even the Hawthorne House. The target of the curse, according to her, was the descendants of those who had wronged Sarah in the past. And in modern Salem, those who disrespected Sarah's memory by overly commercializing Halloween celebrations could also be targets of this curse. Aris's project criticized this very commercialized image of witchcraft. Ironically, would it become part of Sarah's revenge? Halloween night was approaching. Aris and Lena were conducting their final research at the Hawthorne House. Lena found a symbol in an old local grimoire, believed to belong to Sarah Goode's family. This symbol was used for protection, but when inverted, it signified a summoning ritual. And on the old wooden floor of the house, in a groove of a floorboard under Aris's bed, they found an inverted version of this symbol. This meant someone was summoning Sarah to the house. But who and why? That night the town was filled with Halloween madness. Masked people roamed the streets, laughter echoed in the air. Aris and Lena looked at each other in the corridors of the Hawthorne House, with a tension that grew by the minute. As midnight approached, the sounds inside the house became more distinct. Whispers, murmurs, as if the walls were speaking. Then a piercing scream came from the attic. They both rushed to the attic at the same time. The attic was full of old furniture and dusty boxes. In the room, lit by candlelight, stood an old cradle. Inside the cradle there was a worn fabric doll, and the doll's eyes were fixed on Aris. The doll's face had a terrifying expression. As Aris approached the doll, he noticed that the fabric on the doll resembled the clothes Sarah Goode wore. And around the cradle, there was a dried wreath made of local plants. This was the final step of a summoning ritual. Lena whispered in horror, "This is a ritual made to summon Sarah's spirit. And this doll, this is her manifestation." At that moment, all of Aris's scientific beliefs shattered. This reality before his eyes was inexplicable. Suddenly, the air in the attic grew heavy, and a cold cloud of mist appeared in the middle of the room. From the mist, the figure of an old, hunched woman slowly began to rise. Her face was wrinkled, her eyes burning with fire. This was Sarah Goode. Sarah's voice echoed through the walls of the room. "Justice! I want justice! Those who shed my blood, those who cursed my soul. You will find no peace." Sarah stretched out her hand and grabbed Aris's throat. Her touch was icy cold, preventing him from breathing. Aris struggled, but Sarah's strength was superhuman. Lena quickly opened the grimoire, searching through the pages. "There must be a way to break the curse," she shouted. Sarah lifted Aris into the air. Her eyes were filled with hatred. "You are one of them too. You who disregard my past, who forget my pain. You will all pay." Lena finally found a page. On the page, a ritual to reverse Sarah's curse was written. The ritual required whispering the victim's name, sprinkling a handful of blessed salt, and then making an admission, acknowledging the past injustice. Lena whispered Aris's name, sprinkling a handful of salt towards Sarah. The salt made a sizzling sound, as if burning Sarah's spirit. Sarah's power weakened. Aris fell to the floor, coughing and struggling to breathe. Lena shouted at Sarah, "Sarah Goode, we know your pain. We acknowledge the injustice done to you. We are here for you to find peace." The expression of hatred on Sarah's face slowly turned to sorrow. The flames in her eyes died down. Her body began to tremble. Then with a final whisper, "Justice, justice," she said, and vanished into the mist. The room returned to normal. The attic fell into its old silence. Aris and Lena looked at each other out of breath. They were trying to understand what they had experienced. Aris, as a scientist, didn't know how to explain this experience. But now he knew that some truths were beyond books. The next morning, as the first rays of sun filtered through the windows of the Hawthorne House, Aris and Lena searched the attic again. The cradle and the fabric doll were gone. There was only dust and old belongings. But on the floor, where the cradle had been, they found a small dried flower. A red marigold, the kind that grew in Sarah Goode's garden. Aris rewrote his project. This time, he included that the Salem witch trials were not just a historical event, but also a curse that still lingered. The academic community branded him as crazy. His career was at risk, but Aris didn't care. He had seen the truth, and he had to tell the truth. Together with Lena, they started a campaign to erect a memorial in the town, to honor Sarah Goode's story and acknowledge the past injustice. Perhaps this would bring peace to Sarah's spirit. The Hawthorne House became quieter after that day, but every Halloween, Aris would feel that strange whisper in the air again. And when he looked out the window, sometimes in the fog, he thought he saw the silhouette of an old, hunched woman. Sarah Goode's shadow would forever hang over Salem, and Aris Thorne, once the skeptical historian, now knew that some curses are not just a story. They are real and continue to seek justice through the ages. And perhaps one day, that shadow will truly find peace. But until then, every Halloween night, Salem's dark past would continue to breathe. And this would be Aris's greatest story, one he could never write, but would whisper to the whole world.